Hi, I'm Kimberly, and today's video is the 5 tips for Jupiter retrograde. Hi, I'm Kimberly, and today's video is about Jupiter going direct and Saturn going direct. I'll also talk about Mercury going direct, but the main thing is Jupiter and Saturn. So I'm going to bring up the charts for each of these. Okay. So the first one is Saturn Direct. That has happened today, actually. Here's Saturn, and just about 7 degrees, and it is square the ascendant here. So it starts off with a little bit of a challenge, but Saturn is always a challenge. So we got Saturn in Aquarius. So we have Saturn and Aquarius, and we have Saturn and Aquarius, and the next so we have Saturn Aquarius, and there's a couple of aspects coming up for the rest of this month. I'm just going to talk about October and an overview regarding these direct motion changes. And then my tips will include a little bit in the future as well. The 5 tips are coming up at the end of the video. So Saturn goes direct, and then Venus comes around to form a sextile aspect to Saturn. And that's on the 13th of the month. And then later on in the month, we have a Sun square Saturn. And those are pretty much the aspects for the month. And so the 13th, the October 13th, that aspect, it's a sextile, so it's an easy aspect. And the best way I feel like I can describe it is kind of like a good time to schmooze a little bit with your boss or anyone, like any kind of supervisor, like kind of get to know them a little bit and try to get on their good side. This is a good time this week, October 13th this week. Later in the month, it's definitely more challenging. So you can see here, here's Saturn, and here's Venus. It comes around, it's coming up in a few days. It's going to sextile Saturn. And here's the Sun. Whoops. Here's and here's the Sun. Right now you can see today it's at 7, almost 18. So as it moves forward, by the end of the month, it's going to go into Scorpio, and it'll get to about 7 degrees because Saturn is pretty much barely moving. It's going to square Saturn here. And this one is particularly challenging because the moon will come all the way around over here and be opposite the Sun. So here's the Sun, and so the particularly challenging thing here is the moon is going to travel around. By the end of the month, the moon will come over here and it'll be opposite Saturn while the Sun is squaring Saturn. So that forms a T-square. So right over, whoops, yeah, right over here. So I have this marked down as like a really strong, the energy is like a deadline or a limit. Like it's going to be a very definite, like you have to complete and do something by this deadline. Think of, that's the kind of energy we have here. It's a fixed energy. And Saturn definitely will stop you from going ahead with the moon opposite. So there's a definite restriction or limit. I'll go into more of that with part of my tips at the end. So I'm going to go into Jupiter, and I'm going to show the chart for that. Okay, here's Jupiter. It's at this very minute, it moves to direct at 22, and Jupiter has more going on for it this month. And this is more important, or it's more helpful to some of the other planets. So Jupiter rules Pisces and Sagittarius, and Venus is in Sagittarius right now. So Jupiter has been retrograde, Venus went to Sagittarius, and so Venus is not really that thrilled to be in Sagittarius, but especially because Jupiter, its ruler, the planet ruling over it, is retrograde. So now when it goes direct, then we got Venus feeling better. So any Venus type activities like entertainment, Jupiter activities are going to be a lot easier. It's going to be a lot more comfortable because Venus definitely likes comfort. So here is, let's see, what's the first thing we have here? So actually, let's go, here's the chart for when it goes direct. And so you can see it when that happens, it's already in a trine to Mars. So that's on the 18th. And this is a really good time for business decisions, like a business meeting. Mars and Jupiter work well together to get business type activities done. And it's, since the sun is nearby, even though the sun is past this aspect, it's still nearby. And so that's helpful too, giving a solar, shining the light kind of energy. So that's a helpful aspect. And then we got a little over a week, and then we got Venus sextile Jupiter. So about on the 28th, we have Venus coming around to about 22 Sag. And so that is a great time. That I have that down as it's a Thursday. And so that's a great time for entertaining. So you could probably extend it to the Friday. I wouldn't do it before because there's a hard aspect a couple of days before, but Thursday, Friday, which is the weekend before Halloween, that's a really good time for entertaining and going out for an evening. The couple of days before is a Venus square Neptune. So that's a little easier than if Venus had its ruling, Venus and Sag had Jupiter in retrograde motion. So that Venus square Neptune happens before the Venus and Jupiter aspect. So hopefully any midweek problems can get taken care of before that Halloween weekend. So now at the end of the month, let's show you here. Here is Mercury. By the time the last day of, by the time Halloween comes around, Mercury will be direct, and it will trine Jupiter. It'll be at 22. It'll move on to here. It'll be trine Jupiter. And it's the second time for the month. So I want you to think back to the beginning of the month. Mercury had just gone retrograde for less than a week. We had Mercury trine Jupiter. So any issues that came up then, because Mercury's retrograde, Jupiter was retrograde, the end of the month, you kind of get a second chance to fix any miscommunications, fix any writing, any social media issues. So at the end of the month, it's definitely a better time for writing, publishing, and putting your name out there on social media. So that's an overview. And now just going to go over quickly the Mercury Direct. So Mercury goes direct on October 18th. This video is mainly about Saturn and Jupiter, but so this video is mainly about Jupiter and Saturn, but I'm including it because we don't usually have so many planets going direct in such a close proximity, and it's part of my tips at the end of the video. So here it is going direct. Now it's going to start, it's going to come back, and it's going to, for the third time, join with Mars, and it will join with the Sun again, and then it will move on into Scorpio. So these three direct planets really give you now a sense of like, can actually move forward. So what I want to talk about right now, I'm going to take this off. So we have all these planets going direct, Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury. And so I'm just going to give you some dates here. Saturn will be direct until June 4th of next year. So think about that. That's 8 months of direct motion. So Saturn likes to get like very structured, planned things done. So this is a great time to really get organized and make those step-by-step plans. You got 8 months. That's a long time. Usually, because planets usually the outer ones go retrograde for about 6 months, half the year. So it's from 7 degrees to 25 degrees in Aquarius. That's Saturn. Now Jupiter definitely is more interesting right now. We got just got a few 2.5 months left of Jupiter in Aquarius. So Jupiter and Saturn have been together in Aquarius for pretty much almost all of the year. And it was really helpful to have some limits on growth, not growing too fast, not restricting too much. So this kind of a balancing act between them. So Jupiter is going to finish up any intellectual issues for the rest of the year. So on December 29th, Jupiter goes into Pisces. Yay! So Jupiter in Pisces is a lot easier. It's a very nice position because it rules Pisces. So the only thing that's a bummer is that it moves so fast. Jupiter goes through Pisces super fast because it spent some time in Pisces earlier this year. So let's see. Oh yeah, here we go. So December 30th to May 10th, Jupiter and Pisces. So that is your time to do Piscean type things, to get extra sleep. Should be easier to get some sleep, to work on dreaming. And this is important because if you're dreaming, you're getting very good deep REM sleep. If you never dream, you need to improve your sleep quality. Jupiter and Pisces, it's a great time for that. Now I'm just going to go over Mercury real quick, then I'll get to the tips. So Mercury is going to blast through the last part of the rest of Libra. Let's see, it goes, okay. So by November, we're going to get Mercury into Scorpio, then Mercury in Sag, Mercury in Capricorn, and it goes all the way into Aquarius in January. And so it's going to be direct that whole time. Mercury direct until middle of January. So what I want to bring up is it's going to go into Aquarius, which we've been dealing with Aquarius all this last year. So Mercury's going to go retrograde in Aquarius. So it's a time we have to kind of go back and rehash some of those Aquarian topics, those intellectual pursuits, anything, any kind of anything you drummed up in your imagination that you're working on, going to be revisited it's going to be revisited in January. So here are my tips. Tip number 1. So with Saturn, it's going direct. It still sets limits. That's what Saturn does. So it's just going to be a lot easier to work on the challenges, those limits. So it's going to be more obvious where your limit is. And what I suggest, my tip is that to pinpoint and find that boundary or limit and know where it is so that you know what your parameters are for the next 8 months while Saturn is direct. Tip number 2 is Jupiter. Use Jupiter and Pisces to expand that awareness within those parameters that you set up, that limit that you found. Use that Jupiter and Pisces to expand and grow your awareness in that, within that limit. Increase your awareness of how to grow within those parameters. Tip number 3, Jupiter and Pisces means spend energy on your higher self. So I talked about dreaming, like quality sleep, which includes dreams, but also the Pisces connects to the universe and sees everything as one. So you're the long view of your contribution to society. This is a great time to look at that. Jupiter and Pisces. I mentioned it's only 5 months starting the very end of this year. So New Year's Eve resolution, perfect time. What is the humanitarian, the bigger purpose of your life here on this earth? So now tip number 4, Mercury in Scorpio. We usually have about 3 weeks of Mercury in a sign. So what are you going to eliminate? Mercury's going direct during this whole time. Mercury in Sagittarius. What are you going to encourage? What you need to explore? And then Mercury in Capricorn. What are you going to build? So once you've eliminated something, and now you've focused on what you want to expand, how are you going to build it? So that's what you want to work on while Mercury is direct. And then my last tip is Mercury. Actually, I've already talked about it. The Mercury review in January, starting in mid-January. It's a review of what you worked on with when Jupiter and Saturn were together in Aquarius this year. Okay, so that's going to start in January because Mercury is going to go into Aquarius. It's going to stop, go backwards. So review time, your intellectual pursuits. And that's it. So those are my 5 tips. I would love it if you please subscribe, like my video. And my next video will be health and fitness for the Scorpio season. So my health videos will start with the official start of every Zodiac season. Thank you. And thank you.